What's up guys, Ghost here, and today I've got 5 tips to help you guys strafe infantry in the new Pacific Plains on Iwo Jima and Pacific Storm. I regularly see people saying they have difficulty seeing and identifying infantry on the ground, and by the time they see them, it's too late to fire. So let's get straight into it. Okay, so tip number 1, get the right specializations. Okay guys, so once you're in my company, you're going to check out the specializations. I should show you guys, by the way, it's the 2 left planes here that you really want. The ones on the right, for example, this Corsair, this is the one that gets the glider bomb, but it's the left-hand ones here that are really the kings when it comes to strafing infantry. So the Corsair F4U-1A, hop into specializations, and first of all, you're going to want to take the 4 20mm cannons on the left here. Now these in and of themselves are not that special, but once you take the one below and you upgrade those to high explosive rounds, they are absolutely insane for strafing infantry. Now next, you're coming through the middle here and you want to take the full blown canopy. Not that it's such a great specialization, but really just so we can get over to the right hand side of the panel here. And then of course, we are going to want to take the 2x incendiary bombs. So these will basically leave a load of fire in their wake on the floor. They cover a pretty huge area. You can get points with these minutes after you have dropped them. They really do last a long time. They do a lot of damage to infantry, and what's more, they can also block off certain areas and make them impassable for the infantry. Next, you're going to want to take flares, as those will allow you to spot and will be a massive help. And then finally, you want to take the improved control surfaces. You can take the radar package, but personally, I prefer improved control surfaces just because it allows you to maneuver a little bit better, turn a little bit faster. It's going to be your best friend in a dogfight. But if you do have issues with knowing when an enemy plane is on your tail or anything like that, then you might prefer to go with the radar package. Let's go quickly take a look at the Zero. Again, the one on the left here, the A6M2. And it's pretty much exactly the same deal, although I would say the Zero is slightly better because this middle one here that you have to take to get over to the incendiaries is the fin barrels, which reduces the cooling on your primary guns. So that's going to make dogfighting a little bit better in the Zeros. Overall, I do have to say the Zero is a better dogfighter than the Corsair for sure. So yeah, they're a little bit stronger, but all in all, pretty much the same loadout here. Okay, tip number 2 is make use of your third person and rear view camera to survey the battlefield before you go down for a strafe. Definitely a huge mistake I see people make is to take off from the runway, fly directly over the action and go for a strafe before they've even spotted any targets. I went over all the key bindings I use in my last video, so I'll link that if you guys haven't seen it yet, but I like to bind free look to the right mouse click. That way, whenever I'm gaining altitude or repairing, whatever it may be, at the same time, I'll be getting an overview of the battlefield and seeing where I should strafe from next. Now, a lot of the time, if you look down, you will see these little white dots running around, and that is basically what the infantry look like. I'd really recommend turning your mesh quality in-game up to the highest setting, so Ultra if you're playing on PC. Even if you don't have a great rig, I think running mesh quality on Ultra is definitely worth it. So even before I've gotten in range to see these spots, you guys can see that you can notice those little white dots running around, and that's what is going to enable you to get those multi-kills and kill a lot of people with the splash damage. Once you go in for your strafe, you don't really have much time to change your trajectory, so if you've lined up incorrectly and you're not on target, you're going to have wasted that time and put yourself in danger. Now, in addition to identifying targets manually, you should also be using your flares as often as you can. Not only will it make spotting enemies much easier for you, but it will net you a ton of easy points and help out your teammates as well. I find the best time to drop them is just before you fly over the flag of the objective. You drop 2 flares, so this way you get one just before the objective and one that lands just after, and then they both overlap in the middle directly on top of the flag. But whilst flares are really good in this game, spotted enemies do have a minimum range, so when you're going in for that strafe, you'll most likely be able to spot the enemies running around before you even see the in-game spots. Okay, tip number 3 is to be aware of enemy flak cannons and the dreaded Fliegerfaust. If you're too aggressive, the Fliegerfaust will put you out of action before you know it. So make sure you get up real high before your strafe to give yourself plenty of airtime and possibility to spot your targets. Also, if the enemies down below are spotted up, then you should be able to see what classes they're playing. If you see a lot of assault players, you should probably be extra wary and try to target them first. You also need to take your angle of attack into extra consideration and use your terrain to your advantage. Now, I could easily be strafing from the Japanese side of the map here, which would probably save me some time, but then I'd be out over the ocean after my strafe, and if I'd taken damage from a Fliegerfaust, one of the American planes spawning or coming from a resupply run could easily finish me off. I actually prefer to strafe the enemy team directly from behind. This does take a little bit more time as you have to position yourself out over the ocean, but firstly, they won't expect it as much, and therefore I'm less likely to take damage. Second, I'll be able to hit them directly behind their cover as they hide from our infantry on the ground, and do extra splash damage to them on that cover. And thirdly, as soon as I'm done strafing, I'm lined up nicely with my own resupply station. So if there's an enemy plane gotten on my tail, I can lead him over my allies in the hope that he'll get shot down, or just get back and resupply so that I can repair and have an advantage in that dogfight. Tip number 4. Don't forget to use your incendiary bombs. It is a bit of a knack to get used to aiming the bombs in Battlefield 5, since there's no aiming reticle or screen as such, but a lot of the time, dropping them as you're pulling up from your strafe can be very effective. That way, anybody that you've splashed a little bit with your cannons or has taken some enemy fire will be finished off by your bombs. However, it's also totally okay to drop your bombs from up high and not go for a cannon strafe at all if you feel like getting down low will open you up to enemy Fliegerfausts. Coming down in a vertical fashion at full speed seems to be the best way to get your bombs to line up with where your plane is headed. But just be aware that the further you are from the ground and the longer their trajectory, the more gravity will pull them down below your plane. So depending on the range, you'll just have to use your best judgment of when to release them. So lastly, tip number 5 is to read the minimap. It's all well and good knowing where the enemy is on breakthrough, but in Conquest, they will probably be very spread out and could be anywhere, so you need to read the game to figure out their most likely location and where you want to drop your flares. So for example here I can see that we are losing D flag. This is one of the most highly contested flags on the map, and sure enough there are a bunch of guys down there, so I strafe down, try and target the assault players, and then I'm going to come back around for another strafe. Now sometimes it's very clean and cut, you have half of the flags, the enemy has the other half, and therefore you can pretty much guesstimate where they're going to be running. But sometimes, maybe they've got one of your home flags, you have one of their home flags, and then maybe each of you have one of the central flags. And in that case, you need to be checking the top of the scoreboard all the time and try to notice whenever somebody starts capping one of your flags. If you do notice that, maybe it's a good idea to fly over there and drop some flares. So, there you go. Take the right loadout, use free look and flares to spot enemies, plan your strafe well and be careful of enemy AA, don't forget to use your incendiaries, and read the game well. Do all of those things and you should have no trouble racking up some tasty kill streaks. Thank you all for watching. If you found this video useful, then maybe consider leaving a like down below to let me know. Please chime in as well if you guys have any tips of your own to add, because just like everyone else, I'm always looking to improve myself. Have a good day guys, and I will see you all in the next one. Cheers.